Hi, it's Caroline. I had a viewer ask me a question 3 months ago about what is my definition of recovery, and is recovery really going to be for the rest of one's life? And other people have asked me about the definition of recovery before, and as I said in my last video, this has been a very enlightening year for me, understanding what recovery really means. Coming so close to relapsing made me really adjust my definition of recovery from previous videos. And so I'll say what I used to think and what I think now. 2 years ago, I had convinced myself that there was such thing as being recovered for the rest of your life. And to me, I thought that meant never, ever, ever having an eating disorder type thought again for the rest of your life. Now, I do believe and feel, I know that you can live in recovery for the rest of your life, and you can never symptomatically have an eating disorder again, right? Like, you can go the rest of your life not starving, not purging, not binging. But I suspect it's impossible to go your entire life not having the mental part of your eating disorder inflamed. Meaning, I've decided, or what I've learned in the last year, is that an eating disorder, or, an eating disorder is a mental illness, right? That's how it's described medically. So to me, that means there's this like tiny little pinpoint pea-sized thing in your brain that is the eating disorder. And when you're in recovery, you can get to a place, a stable, consistent place, where it stays minuscule and quiet most of the time. But when traumas trigger you or come up, especially those traumas that are very similar to the ones that initially caused the eating disorder, and that reactivate those original feelings of trauma, the little pea-sized eating disorder mental part of your brain is going to inflame. And when something inflames, like if you bruise or have swelling in your leg and it inflames, what are you going to do to make it better? You're going to get an ice pack or apply heat. You're not going to hit it or scratch it or make it worse. So that's what recovery is, right? When it inflames, when you're in recovery, if you nurture it, if you take care of it, if you call your therapist or a doctor or a friend or write about it or do something that is not harmful to yourself, then you're dealing with the inflammation. If you scratch it, if you make it worse, and then you relapse, that's recovery to me, is knowing how to manage when the eating disorder inflames again. So, to me, recovery is consistently being in a space where you don't deal with the inflammation of an eating disorder by having an eating disorder. So, I used to talk about this notion of full recovery. And sure, maybe that exists, but my definition of that term has shifted, and what I used to think meant I would never think about having an eating disorder again is false, because I spent the last year really loathing my body and eating emotionally. Now, I didn't purge, and I didn't cut myself, and instead I dealt with the inflammation. I immediately confronted my feelings anytime I felt I was eating emotionally or thinking too much about food. And I've paid really close attention to all that. So I'm still in recovery, and I plan to be in recovery for the rest of my life. And I plan to have most of my time in that recovery where the eating disorder is a tiny pea-sized thing in the back of my brain that no one really notices. But there may be years or months or days or hours like the one I just had this past year where it got really inflamed, but I didn't make it worse. So recovery is understanding yourself and having compassion for yourself and understanding your triggers and knowing how to work with them and to sit with your feelings and to persevere beyond the negative feelings towards yourself and the self, Hatred. I don't like that word. It's not nice. Still running. Oh yeah, that's what I was just thinking. What was I going to say? If it looks like I kept moving my tongue around my mouth, it's because I was just eating popcorn and there were still like kernels around. Anyway, I thought I would share that so no one thought I was crazy. So yeah, I hope that helps. And